Good morning and welcome to Burlington United Methodist Church. My name's Ed Armantrout. Thanks for joining us today. The scripture I'm going to read this morning is from Galatians. It's chapter 3, verses 23 through 29. Now before faith came, we were imprisoned and guarded under the law until faith would be revealed. Therefore, the law was our disciplinarian until Christ came, so that we might be justified by faith. But now that faith has come and we are no longer subject to a disciplinarian. For in Christ Jesus you are all children of God through faith. As many of you as were baptized into Christ have clothed yourself with Christ. There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male or female. For all of you are one in Jesus Christ. And if you belong to Christ, then you're Abraham's offspring, heirs according to the promise. So I call this coming of faith. It's how we recognize the faith that we have, how we come into that. So before I talk about where we're at now, I want to talk a little bit about old Jewish law. One of the things that's important for us is, and sometimes I think we just sort of dismiss the Old Testament because we don't see how it's relevant to us. But when you go back and read the Jewish law and all the laws that the people were trying to follow, it's important for us to realize how that affects where we're at now once we become part of Jesus Christ. So I want to give you an example. Think of it as probably a lot of us went to school and we either had crossing guards because we were those as kids, or there were some adults that got us across a busy street or something just before we got to the school. Those people were there every day when we were coming and going, whether it was just in the morning to evening, whether we left for lunch at the same time. But what they did was they made sure that we got from wherever we started to the school. They got us right up to the door. They would get us in, but you know what? None of those men or women ever taught one of my classes. And so the whole idea for them was to get us right to the place that we needed to be to learn, but they were not going to be the ones teaching us. Now for us in the Old Testament, and you can go back and read any time about the Jewish people because it wouldn't be any different for us than it was for them, and they knew what the law was, and they could recite the law, and they knew what they were supposed to do, and then they would do whatever they wanted to do. And they did that on a regular basis. They never could follow the law. It didn't matter how many times they tried, no matter what God did. There are several times where God is just so disappointed in him, he just talks about just being done with the whole lot. And Moses talks him out of that, saying, well, what are people around your world going to think if you drug us out of Egypt just to kill us out here in the desert because we can't follow the rules? And so God gives them another chance, just like he does us. But what we really learn from all that we're not able to keep the law, is it's not based on us keeping the law. What makes us be able to do what we're supposed to do is the grace that God gives us each and every day. It's grace that's undeserved, that there's no way we could earn it, but it's just a gift that we get from God. So I want to go back and talk about the difference between Jewish and Christianity and where you see this difference in the law and how it makes for us. So if you wanted to become Jewish, there were three things that you had to do. You had to be circumcised, you had to offer sacrifices, and then you had to be baptized. And now, if you were born Jewish, that wasn't true, but this is if you were born Gentile or some other religion, you were going to become Jewish, this is what you had to do. So part of the baptism had several things that you had to do, which is pretty kind of Jewish related here. You had to cut your hair and your nails. You had to be completely undressed. You needed 280 liters of water. That's about 74 gallons. That is a lot of water. When you're put into the water, water is supposed to touch every part of your body. You were going to have three friends there. They were going to read parts of the law as your baptism was taking place. They were going to read words of encouragement to you, and they were also going to give blessings in your favor. And when this was complete, however long it would take, then you became Jewish. You were going to enter the Jewish faith. Now let's compare that to a Christian baptism. And so for the Methodist Church, you have three different ways of doing that. You can either be sprinkled, you have water poured, or you can be immersed into water. And so you can choose those however you want. But when you're done with that, whichever of those three ways you take, you don't really become part of the Methodist Church or the Baptist Church or whatever church it is you're being baptized in. What you're really is you're becoming part of Jesus Christ. You're allowing him to be part of you. And it's not just an external thing, it's also internal. And so what's being said in Galatians here is that after that, this would not be true for the Jewish baptism, but for Christian baptism then, we are all the same. So his comparison is he's comparing Jews and Greeks. Well, we don't really do Jews and Greeks, but you can pick whatever you want. If you want to put Hispanic and white or black and Asian, it doesn't matter. We're all the same. He talks about whether we're slaves or free. Either of those, it doesn't matter. Whether we're male or female, it doesn't matter. Because through that baptism, we all inherit the promises of Jesus Christ. Not by law, not by going through that, but because the faith that we receive from the free grace of God. Now, because of this free grace, I would say that all of us owe a debt to God for this undeserved grace. If my grace that God gave me was based on the things I've done in my life, I would not be a very graceful person, because I'm guessing I'm a lot like you. I've done some things in my life I'm not very proud of. I hope to become a better person each and every day. That's my goal. And I think I've done pretty good on that. But I'm sure if God was here today, he might tell you there's been some times I was disappointing to him. And so that grace that we get is undeserved. Part of that is then we become part of Jesus Christ, a part of that family of God that I talked about a couple weeks ago in the message. And all of us become part of that. All of us, all at one time. And when I say all, I don't mean just all in the church here. I mean all Christians all around the world. We've all become part of that family of God. And so at the end, our problem is, and we do this so many things, so many different ways. But what we try to do is we try to do human efforts to make the world a better place, to unite the world. The commentary I was reading this week is from William Barclay. It was written in 1956, so about 70 years ago. And the way he ends that is, if we can come together, then we have the ability to unite the world. I think you can look around and say we haven't been very successful in that. And I think I would tell you the reason we're not very successful in that is because we try to do it through human effort. And whether you're reading about human effort in the Old Testament or you're reading about human effort in the New Testament, and I talked last week about none of that's really newer than 2,000 years old, or you look at anything that we try to do now, we fail when it comes to human effort. And so what we really need to do here is take that love of God, share it with all mankind. Now, when I say all mankind, I really mean all mankind, because we just spoke a few minutes ago about how there's no difference between Jew and Greek, which 2,000 years ago, that was a big deal. Between slave and free, which 2,000 years ago was a big deal, maybe even 200 years ago in the United States, that was a big deal. And between male and female, which till recently seems to be becoming less and less a big deal, but historically has been a big deal as far as the way people were treated and what things happened. But once we become part of Christ, allow Christ to come in our lives, accept the grace that God gives us each and every day, that love allows us to make the world a different place. So what I would suggest, I started to use the word caution, but I don't think that's the right word. What I would suggest we do is find a way to love one another. If we can find a way to love one another, then all the stuff that goes on, the people getting angry with each other, people zinging out things on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and Instagram and whatever else somebody just invented that I don't know the name of today, all that stuff can end. Because we live in a world right now that, from everything we see and read, is becoming more splintered, more separate. And we're not going to be able to change that on our own. You can go back and look at Barclay. 70 years ago, he was worried about this. We're still talking about the same thing now. Problem is, we're trying to fix it on our own. We do not have the ability to do that. As the Jewish people in Old Testament times couldn't follow the law, we're not any better at it. We can only make the world a better place by loving God and sharing that love with all mankind. And when I say all, big capitalized all, underlined, italicized, quotation marks around it, doesn't mean you get to pick who all is. It means all is all. Thanks for joining us this week. You're welcome to come and attend the service anytime you like. We meet in person at 10:45 on Sunday mornings. We'd love to have you. If there's anything I can do for you, my email and phone number will be on the screen, and you can either email me or give me a call. Thanks again for joining us.